back to another episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast, where we provide actionable tips and tactics that you can apply immediately to grow your practice, to serve more patients, and leave a greater impact, because that is what it's all about, my friends. My name is Mark Thackeray, and as always, I am honored to be here with you this very moment. It is another fantastic day, and just excited to be with you. Thank you for spending your time on the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast. We've got a great episode for you. I am joined by Dr. Pete Theurer, who is an experienced dentist. He is the CEO of Bridge Dental Group, and we are going to be talking about how to successfully add an associate to your practice. And it's so cool because Pete's had a lot of experience doing this for different practices, and we dive into different aspects of this whole process, which a lot of people have questions about. You know, for many doctors, they would like to achieve a greater work-life balance, maybe work fewer hours, fewer days of the week, and have an associate to be there to supplement or to see and treat those patients for them. Or perhaps they're in the growth stage of their practice where they're growing at a great rate and they need the support in order to handle all those new patients and growth. Or perhaps they're looking at an exit strategy or succession plan, and they want someone to come in and make it a smooth transition for their practice and for their patients. So we dive into all the different aspects of, you know, when adding an associate makes sense, when does it not make sense, what certain characteristics or things do you look for in an associate, how does that affect your marketing strategy, how do you promote a new associate without, you know, you want to avoid that without losing trust, or you want to answer those questions that a lot of patients will have is why can't I see my original dentist? Or, you know, you want to be able to preempt some of those questions and handle those potential objections in advance. And then finally, what are a few steps? Pete actually outlines 3 steps that you can take right away if you are looking to have an associate in the future. So buckle up, my friends. We have another great episode, and let's get right into it. All right, welcome back, you guys. So excited to have Pete Theurer here with me. Dr. Pete he's got a varied background, actually. He's got a lot of experience running a practice. He's also in the organization space. He's building out a really cool company as well. But I'll have him kind of talk about that. So Pete, why don't you take a few minutes? First of all, welcome, and then take a few minutes and just kind of give everyone, our listeners, a background on your experience.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate you being here. This is going to be really fun and something I'm looking forward to. So appreciate you having me on. One is right now I'm CEO and founder of Bridge Dental Group, more of a partnership DSO where we partner with existing practices that are successful. We're not looking at to partner and do the fixer-upper kind of model.
Yeah.
We want to take good and great practices and just elevate them and kind of relieve some of the burden of running the practice that a dentist has, but really rely on the dentist as the CEO of the practice with the kind of full clinical and cultural autonomy. They've built something special. We don't want to change it. So we started Bridge Dental Group about 2 years ago. Previous to that, I'd been practicing for 11 years. I've done 2 scratch starts and bought an existing practice from a retiring dentist. Have a lot of different experiences and practices, and with that, kind of had the framework of, hey, let's. With kind of the DSO craze that's happening in our industry, we set out to really provide an avenue that really helps the private practice dentist that wants to still have full kind of clinical and cultural autonomy, still wants to be them, still wants to have their identity, but wants to some of the advantages of being part of a group. So we're up to 23 practices in 2 years now. Across 11 states and soon to be 27 partnerships. And we're just excited about where we've come from, where we are, and kind of where we're headed. One of the things that kind of will introduce our topic today is we quickly learned in joining or starting the group that we were going to need to be a dentist recruiting organization.
Yeah. I remember you mentioned that
What?
when we were talking about this. So yeah,
Yeah.
dive into that. Let's hear about
Yeah, no,
that.
yeah. I mean, right, as we started to talk to dentists and what they wanted and some of the big asks that they were wanting from, the value of joining a group is obviously everyone wanted, we're on this podcast for a specific reason, marketing. Everyone
Mhm.
wants the marketing ask. Everyone wants and needed, especially right now, hiring needs, right? Hiring staff right now, support staff is it can be difficult and challenging. But then big and high on the list was an associate,
Yeah.
right? Is that they were in a stage, and there's a number of reasons why, but given their stage and kind of where they were at with their practice, they were looking to add an associate and wanted some help in one, recruiting, and two, kind of onboarding and transitioning that associate in a successful way.
Right.
So we quickly learned is in this, in the DSO space, we were going to need to be successful at guiding owner doctors in finding and transitioning, onboarding an associate doc.
That's a yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of doctors, that's well, let me ask you that, Pete. So do you find that that's all typically, is that pretty common among doctors? That's always in the back of their head, like I know that they know that eventually they're going to have to do that, or do you find that it's triggered by something in particular, circumstance, situations? What brings that on, would you say? Just that desire to add someone?
Yeah, no, that's great. So there's kind of a list of probably some a good list of reasons why a doc would think about bringing on an associate. Um, and I think that you could list them and say work less, more time with my family. I'm just overburdened.
Yeah.
I want to add more procedures, but maybe I don't want to do them, or I do some specialty work and I would do some bigger cases. I want somebody there to do some of the smaller stuff and the more bread and butter dentistry. I'm just going at a tough pace. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a dentist, been in the trenches. I get like it is a grind. You're on stage.
Yeah.
It's like you're on stage all day long,
Yeah.
and a lot of doctors in their 40s. I talked to a lot of docs in their 40s, and it's almost like they're ready. They're experiencing some sort of burnout, right?
Yeah.
Or they see it coming and they're like, oh man, if I want to do this for another 10, 15, 20 years,
Yeah.
I'm going to need to bring someone else on to kind of help, carry the load.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's a succession plan. So there's a number of docs that are later in their career that want to bring on that associate as part of a succession plan. So I think it kind of has boiled down to, in my mind, three different reasons why a doc would want that. One, they want to just have more work-life balance.
Yeah.
Okay. And that makes sense. Two, their practice is growing and they're growing and
Yeah.
they want to grow the practice. So, and those are slightly different. That work life is maybe you're going to grow, but it's not just, you're not adding the associate just to grow. You're adding associate to kind of take some relief off of you.
Yeah.
And then three, it's more of that retiring dentist or that, 5 years out from retirement dentist that's saying, oh yeah, I see this coming. I don't want to, I don't want my practice to really fall in value
Yeah.
as I near retirement. So I want to bring on an associate that can help do the dentistry as I kind of fade away, that then can take over and be the successor dentist in that practice. So I
Yeah.
think it boils down to maybe those three things. I'm sure there's a few more that we're not
Sure.
talking about, but are
Do
there
you,
any that you can think of?
no, I think those are the ones. Yeah, I feel like those that I've encountered, a lot of them, I was going to say it's probably those first two. Yeah, until you get to the later stages of the career. Yeah, and you start thinking about, yeah, what's next? What's going to happen to the practice, succession plan, exit strategy, things like that. But do you think for the ones that you're talking with right now, do you find that it's more the first or second, or is it pretty is it a good mix of all three?
Yeah, I think so. We've partnered probably with more docs in their 40s than any other group.
Okay.
We have a few in their 30s that just want to, kind of take advantage of this DSO space, and the economies of scale and what's happening from a value perspective. But then we do have a few that are later in their career. So within Bridge Dental Group right now, we kind of have a pretty good mix, and
Yeah.
we have a good mix of some docs that just like, hey, they're happy with their income level, they're happy with where they sit as far as what their practice is doing,
Yeah.
and they just want to scale back, maybe just that 1 to 1.5 days a week, right? Maybe
Yeah.
they're 4 to 5 days a week, and they want to go 2 to we have one doc that our first partner that we added an associate for. He was working only 3 days a week, but very successful 3 days a week.
Mhm.
3.5, sorry, 3.5. And we brought an associate on, and now he's 2.5, but still very successful. And so it's allowed him to be with his family more and other things. We have other practices that are just growing like crazy, and it's almost like we can't find a dentist fast enough,
Yeah.
just in different markets, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah, and
but
that's kind of what I've seen too. Yeah, it seems like there's a doc in particular that I'm thinking of that her goal is more of that work-life balance like you described, where she's got he's 4-year-old now. I want to say he's 4. But they would like to spend more time with him, and and she's on a 4-day week right now. And so she doesn't do Fridays, but she would like to cut that down to 3, and so it is that desire for more freedom of time, and I think that's what's neat about this is adding an associate allows you to really customize your practice to your lifestyle. If you want to grow and you're more of that kind of growth mindset, then great. It does allow you to see more patients and just grow the practice by the numbers, but then, yeah, if you want greater autonomy of time or freedom of time, then yeah, you can also do that as well, which is really cool. So yeah, in relation to that, are there times when, and I'm maybe jump ahead, but are there times when adding an associate does not make sense? Or does it just case by case? Or what are your thoughts on that, Pete?
Yeah, I think it's case by case. It's doc by doc. Obviously, your practice has to be at a certain success, threshold. Has to
Yeah.
be seen. There's maybe some metrics that you could tie to it. To look at and say, hey, there's maybe some minimal thresholds of metrics that we look at and say, is your practice even ready? Could it absorb? Is
Yeah.
there enough dentistry to do? Obviously, there's some of those questions. And maybe real quick, I'll just dive into maybe some of those, and then
Yeah.
maybe transition to talking another reason why not. On average, and it totally depends on the practice, how new patient focused the practice is. But
Yeah.
but on average, we kind of see the 20 to 30 new patients per month per doc as being a 20 to 30, yeah, or in that range, being a healthy number.
Yeah.
So as you grow above that, then you're able to support more doctors within a practice. And and I'm sure, Mark, you know how to, turn some dials on the marketing point and marketing front to really drive those numbers and help a practice get there if they aren't there now.
Yeah.
Um, and also one metric that we look at maybe is percentage of, and this is getting a little into the weeds, but I think it's important, like percentage of production that is made up of just the hygiene production.
Yeah.
So, on an average, practice is 20 to 30% of the practice's production is hygiene. And that's typically a pretty healthy practice with a healthy hygiene program. But if your practice is typically 25%, of your production is hygiene, and then all of a sudden over the last couple of years, you see that creep up to 35, maybe 40%. We have a practice that's close to 50%.
Wow.
And it's just that hygiene program is just booming.
Yeah.
And right, there's only so much dentistry that the doctor then can do. And so they kind of have to, they start to schedule things that are less priority,
Yeah.
more on the priority list further out, and they're more taking care of those higher priority needs immediately. And so those kind of numbers where you see your percentage of production and hygiene going up, that could be a really good indication that you're ready as well. Right?
Yeah.
But I'd say one of the biggest things of why not to is is if the doc is not ready for change,
Yeah.
because it is change, right? It
Yeah.
is change working with someone else. If you're not used to that as a provider, there might be a piece of mentorship,
Yeah.
some growing pains that just come with an added provider to a practice. So you've got to be ready for some change, right? And kind of go through a little bit of a thought process sequencing of what that looks like before you say, okay, yeah, I'm ready or not. I mean, a lot of it, I think, is the owner docs mentality about it, or their
Yeah.
approach to it.
Yeah,
So
that's a great point. That is a great point. And I see that in marketing a lot too, where if the doctors just not have not adopted that marketing mindset where they one that they believe that marketing can actually fuel their practice to new growth,
right,
then it's just yeah, it's you're fighting that battle and it's
yeah,
never probably going to work out very well in the end. And so
right,
yeah, you have to get to that point where you realize that this is an investment in your future, I mean you that it's one step closer to that ultimate goal that you're trying to reach. And yeah, that does take some yeah, like a mentor piece is exactly right. They have to some education, some little baby steps here and there to get there. But yeah, if they're not on
and
pace,
to be
then
frank too, I think knowing like, hey, maybe having an associate is not for me, and
yeah,
that can
yeah,
be a decision, and it's totally okay, right? We're kind of the dentistry's in this world of growing and consolidating and bigger practices and adding more providers to a practice. But man, we still come across so many doctors and practices that are so successful,
yeah.
and they're single doc practices, and the doctor has no intention of adding an associate,
Hmm.
and that's great, right?
Yeah,
Knowing that is half the battle, right? And knowing that, hey, that's what's going to make you happy. Your career, path is one where you just see yourself being on your own. That's great.
yeah, yeah,
So
totally. And I respect that. I mean, I was like that with my agency for a while, where it was just me for years. And I like that because I don't have to manage anyone. I
yeah,
have my routine. I know my process, and
yeah,
but then recognizing that I wanted to, my goal was to expand and be able to service more practices and more people and have a greater impact. And anyway, and so that led me to adding a team and building that out. And it is yeah, there's growing pains. There's no question. So
yeah,
it isn't for everyone. Totally. Yeah, I totally
yeah,
agree with that. That sometimes it's just not it's not the right fit and that's fine. Yeah, it's totally fine. And you can still be just very successful. And it's not like a requisite for success, long
sure,
term. So,
sure.
yeah, any other thoughts on that? When it either makes sense or doesn't make sense or, yeah, what else are you hearing on that front?
Yeah, I think just kind of, yeah, are you ready for some change? Are you ready for some mentorship? Are you ready for some growth? And kind of dive into all those things that you talked about that you've gone through with your your marketing firm. So I think that going through that process makes a whole lot of sense. One of the things that we like to do in assessing, okay, is doctor ready for that? Is it because we're not going to our partnerships are structured in a way where, again, it's the doctor's in control, kind of that CEO of their
Yeah,
practice, but they're using us as a resource to go find an associate. So they're not bogged down by, going on a hunt or have to hire someone to go find somebody, right? We can go source those candidates that are potential associates. We can kind of do like I do a kind of a quick screen as a doc, right?
yeah,
Having, a doctor to doctor talk about what they're about. But when we go to do that, we first need to sit down with the doctor and kind of figure out what they're looking for, right? Because there's a
yeah,
number of reasons, like we've talked about, a number of reasons why you'd want a doctor. And I think we have to really clearly define, like, okay, what are the certain characteristics or attributes or anything like that we're looking for, or that doctor's really looking for, that's really going to fit what the goals of the doctor are.
yeah,
And so we kind of boil that down. If you don't mind me just jumping right into that, like,
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of we kind of boil that down to, like, okay, one, are you up for a new grad or no?
yeah, yeah.
Not, right?
Because
And
that's
s-
a different scenario, right? I mean, that's a
oh,
whole different
totally.
experience.
And some docs are like, sure, yep, I'd rather have them and train them my way.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And some are like, nope, I don't want their, new grad mistakes being done in my practice. Like, let's go have them somewhere else for a few years, and then I'm ready to take someone on. So it's really, decided, are you ready for a new grad, or do you have an appetite for a new grad or not? And then it's really clearly defining what you're wanting and or the expectations that you're going to have of the associate. And there's a number of different scenarios that play out. One is, do you want someone that complements the skill set that you have? Meaning, man, I hate endo or oral
Yeah.
surgery or whatever. And so I want to really find someone that where we can keep more procedures in-house. And I want to find someone that really loves endo or has done a bunch of implants, and that sort of thing. Um, or is it or like for that more succession doc, or the mid-career doc that they want just someone that really just is kind of a not a clone, but similar to their skill set,
Yeah.
that just kind of an equal provider just alongside of them, but maybe that really fits with that succession doctor that, okay, we've got to replicate what this doctor does.
Hmm.
Meaning, if I'm a succession, if I'm nearing the end of my career and I do endo and I do oral surgery and I do implants, man, I need to find someone that really wants to dive into those so I
Yeah.
can mentor them and bring them up to speed and kind of, make them a newer version of who I am, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Maintain that continuity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that the patient, the patients are going to expect, right? Like, or going to, they're going to, think that, oh yeah, I get this procedure done here versus being,
Right.
referred out. So it's that sort of thing. Or we've seen this in a number of our practices where the doc is that big case, doc. We have a couple practices within our group that really do, kind of hone in on the all on X,
Yeah.
procedure, and have really built their practice around that. And they have associates that don't do those procedures that can do the bread and butter dentistry
Hmm.
alongside. So is it I'm looking for a doctor that can do the bread and butter stuff while I'm doing my bigger cases as another kind of one thing that you don't want to define and define the expectation. So we kind of have a little bit in one of our practices. We kind of have a little bit of everything happening. We have one of those all on four practices, very large practice. And currently there is that bread and butter doctor associate. The doctor has identified, I mean, the doctor's like, hey, we're growing. We
Yeah.
need to grow. We're growing in the general dentistry. We're growing in the all on X stuff. And so one, I'm ready for a new grad. That
Hmm.
was,
Yeah.
decision number one. So, and then what that new grad is going to do is probably a little bit of both. That doc really wants to train that new grad on the all on X procedure,
Yeah.
because there is the demand there in the
Hmm.
practice, but also keep them busy with the bread and butter stuff as well, because there is the need there. So it's kind of a straddling
Yeah.
both sides of that equation. So we'll see how that plays out. That we've identified and kind of, we're going to bring that doctor on, graduating in here in a few months, and going to be bringing them on and see how that works. So we're really excited about how that'll work out in that practice. So
That is exciting. I know, and it is, yeah, it's very specific to the practice. I love that because it could be just that trying to maintain that consistency, doing the similar procedures, or it could just be complementary, like, hey, we don't currently offer these or don't do as much as we could. Let's bring on someone to feed that, to
sure.
handle that load. So that's really cool. Are there, when you're talking with these, perspective, let's say you're wanting to add an associate, and whether it's a new grad or not, are you are there, like characteristics that you're looking for? Is it more kind of mindset or a skill set, or just a combination?
It's a combination. I think it's really clearly defining what your expectations are up front,
Yeah.
and being honest with that doc, right? And the associate, and saying, hey, associate, I really see you, learning this skill set. Is that something that you're willing to do? If you don't
Yeah.
already have that skill set, or one, hey, I just need this skill set right away. Like, but gosh, working together, right?
Mhm.
It creates a lot of challenges,
Yeah.
right? Having that mindset of and characteristic of spending time with that potential associate enough to really know. You're not going to know everything, and I think the statistics say that most associates don't last. Most associateships don't turn into partnerships, even if
Mhm.
they started out with that goal. But getting as much face time and really understanding what the um, the associates' expectations are as well up front, and trying to
Yeah.
maybe just kind of reverse engineer some of those things as much as possible up front. I know it's never going to be perfect, but trying to really have very clear expectations going into the associateship of what that looks like, and then the buy-in from everybody involved, saying, yeah, we're going to promote you, we're going to help bring you on, and we're going to help train you in these procedures, and kind of having that plan. Most associates really want that, right?
Yeah.
They're really wanting a mentorship of some sort. They're wanting, there's a reason why they're not ready for ownership,
Right. Yeah.
or else they'd probably be owning, right? And
Yeah.
they'd be looking
Yeah.
for a different opportunity. So they want to work with somebody, they want to work under somebody, they want to learn, they want to collaborate and in a really healthy way. So really defining those expectations is really the key player there, I think.
Yeah, and just like you said, Pete, being transparent about what this is and what that maybe what it isn't, and just so that because you're trying ultimately to find that person who wants to be there because of what you offer, or what you're offering. Like you said, it's that mentorship again where they gain experience, they gain confidence, they gain expertise, and then they can utilize that for the rest of their career. And I think that's the cool part about this too, is just remembering that you as as the owner, the doctor, you have that you're providing that opportunity to them. That's a very valuable opportunity for a lot of these people. And the ones that they don't see it as that, then it's probably not a good fit. But yeah, those that are chomping at the bit just to learn from someone like you who's been doing it for a long time. That's, I mean, that could be one of those things that you're looking for as you're talking about the opportunity. So Pete, you mentioned this a little bit. Let's dive into this part of the equation. When you decide to add an associate to your practice, how
Mhm.
are you doing that? As far as how are you coaching docs on how to communicate that to their patient base? I know that patients they're going to have a lot of concerns. Like, well, I've been seeing Dr. Pete forever. Like, why would who's this guy?
Yeah, yeah,
How do you
totally.
coach them through that?
No, so one, I think talking to your team about it long before it happens.
Yeah.
So they have the expectation, and they've known, maybe, if you have, monthly or weekly or however, what your cadence is on like team meetings or whatever.
Yeah.
Like if you've been talking about adding somebody with your team for the last year, is like, hey guys, this is a goal of mine. Like, team, I really need you to understand that sometime in the near future, we're going to be right adding a new provider, and
Yeah.
that's exciting,
I love that.
and really really talking about that with your team, because your team really, when you leave the room, right? And that patient's sitting there, or when your associate leaves the room and your patient is sitting there with your assistant that's been there forever, and that patient really trusts and knows that assistant or your hygienist, they're likely going to ask that person, right?
Yeah.
Your team member, hey, what do you think of the new guy, right?
Yeah,
And
sure.
having that stage set well in advance, and so when that does happen, the team is really seeing that as like, oh yeah, this has been part of the plan all along.
Mhm.
Like, and we've identified and we've been picky about who to add. It's not just somebody that we randomly selected. Like, this person's identified as fits our culture of the type of dentistry, type of, patient experience that we provide in our practice. They fit that, and that's why they're invited to be part of our practice. and having that team really, patients can feel that,
Yeah.
the intangibles. They can sense if there's some uneasiness among team members or the doctor,
Right.
right? And so then it becomes from day one, right? A promotion for the doc, right? You gotta, I think we coach our doctors, you gotta set your ego to the side, and
Mhm.
you've been the man or the woman
Yeah.
all along, right? Like you've been the person, the doctor here in the practice that everyone looks up to, that everyone trusts. You've got to now deflect that, right, to this new doctor
Yeah.
so that they feel the support of not only, you and the team, but also of the patients. And the doctors that can really do that and say, you know what, yeah, like I really need to promote this doctor. Those are the ones that just start off and boom.
Yeah.
Uh, but where you're a little bit worried about, oh, case selection, and oh, I don't want to, I'm uneasy with them seeing, and obviously there's comfort level on skill set and those sort of things that you have to, clinically make decisions. But if it's just because you feel like, those patients are yours,
Yeah.
or right, the doctors that have the abundance mentality are the ones that really thrive in the associate environment.
Yeah. That's a great
So
point. Yeah.
so we've really got to coach those doctors on, okay, yeah, like that's going back to like, are you ready for change? Because
Yeah.
it's change, right? And
Yeah.
you've got to obviously almost promote someone and want them to be just as successful as you are within this practice. And if you do that, they will in turn, their production and what they add in value to the practice, not only in dollars and cents, but just the patient experience value that they add to the practice will benefit you as the owner, multiple on the multiple basis, right? It'll
Yeah.
multiply. So having that abundance mentality is really key.
Yeah.
So
And I love that too. I think just it's key in anything, not just it's not just business, but just in life in general. That's something that, my wife and I were just talking about the other day with trying to figure out how to do that with some of our kids and just
yeah,
be more abundant minded, in
yeah,
general. But yeah, I think specifically when you're bringing someone new onto the team, because there is some hesitancy, from
sure,
as the person in charge, for this new person, the new new doc. Um, but also from a team perspective. But if you can almost just see them as they could be or they will be with time, and just promote them in that with that mentality, that
yeah,
hey, this is why we brought them on, and really tout their existing characteristics that sets them apart and qualities. And I think, yeah, like you were saying, just build them up as much as you can and share that with patients. Say, hey, I trust they do the work on me. They're the ones I go to, and that's just having that type of endorsement from someone that they already know and trust, which is you or your team. Then that's tremendous. It goes a long
yeah,
way, and I think it comes back to that the new associate, and they feel so much better. And when you're confident, you do better work.
sure,
Just plain and simple.
totally.
So
No,
yeah,
that's
and I
great. Mark, what have you seen when you've helped us, practices, when your teams help practices like add an associate, what have you seen really be successful as far as the marketing piece?
Yeah, yeah, good question. I think a lot of it has to do with the communication, and like you were saying, it starts with your team, and I love that point. Just plant that seed well in advance so that they're getting used to it. And then they embrace the idea, and then they really get behind it. And same thing too. I think just explaining what I've seen work really well is having that the doctor, the main doctor, just explain the reasons why, and just say, yeah, because we're, as humans, we just like to know the reasons behind things, I mean,
Sure,
that's if you tell
sure,
them why, then we understand why you're doing it or understand the need for the change. Or some are still not going to like it, but you also have to accept that that's going to be the case and it's their choice
sure.
regardless. But just the communication piece is a big part, and making it a big deal. Not treating it lightly. You don't want them to come in and be like, oh, you're seeing you're
Yeah.
seeing Dr. Mark today, and they're like, I have no idea who this schmo is. Like you let them know, in advance and be like, we're so excited, and here's why I chose to do this, bring someone on, and here's what I love about this, and endorse them, and so just preparing them. And then also too, it is going back to the team, because like you mentioned, it is critical that they get behind them. Otherwise there might be some tension, and that can't, it can't stand, you can't have that, in a practice. It's just unfortunate, but that's the truth. And so having the team, I've seen where practices will really just give ample opportunity again and again to work with that associate, or even before, like almost like a soft launch, where they'll just work exclusively with the team and their family or close friends, just so that they understand how they operate, what they're really good at, and can offer some feedback, and then they kind of can gel a little bit more before they're set in front of all of your patients, and so
That's great. Those are
and
great ideas.
those are great. And then just getting to know, different little efforts to get to know that new associate, so it could be an about us piece, the email that goes out, or we want to link to maybe a short little video. A video is a very powerful means of communication, where you can get a sense of how someone is, gestures and expressions, and you have a little bit more engagement with than just a written word. And so, yeah, the short little video is a great way to do that. But be consistent about that for a good period of time. So usually six months, even, where you have a regular piece about that new associate, just until everyone's, you've kind of gone through all your patients. 6 to 12 months is kind of ideal. So you can go through your entire patient base, and everyone has had ample opportunity to hear about it. Because I've learned that when you're finally tiring of hearing the messages, when everyone else is like finally just picking it up, you're like already like well done and beyond that, but they're just starting to like understand what you're sending out. So those are what I've seen. Those are kind of the main pillars of success from a new provider in your office.
That's great.
And it's
one of the things that we've thought of too is and done. It kind of has to be under a certain situation, but if there's a skill set there and you are bringing the associate on, and they're going to see your existing hygiene patients to kind of get them going.
Yeah.
One really you want the associate to be successful from the get-go.
Yeah.
So with the appropriate skill set that they're bringing, obviously a new grad is different than someone that's been out 5-10 years.
Yeah.
But matching that and kind of finding or figuring out a game planning a way to match and maybe jumpstart or boost their hygiene or their production, their production schedule with an overly compensated, hygiene schedule or new patient schedule. Those first 2 months, even if that in one practice we hired temp hygienist 1 to 2 days a week, and added a separate or an additional column, where there was room in the practice from an op perspective and all that, so that associate was seeing, that in that day double the amount of hygiene patients.
I love that.
To really boost their production schedule. Because there's nothing worse than that will kind of just deflate a new associate, is when you bring them on, kind of tell them how successful they're going to be, and they come on and it takes 4 to 5 to 6 months for them to really start to build out their schedule. That can be a grind of a process. Whereas if you can just, again, that abundance mentality, say, oh, we have these patients, obviously you're bringing them on, the associate on, for a certain reason. Maybe you're booked out way too far with hygiene. Well, let's bring in some of those hygiene patients on a more normal time frame and scoot those up. And if we have to hire a temp hygienist, we know that temp hygienists are hygienists are doing the temp thing a lot right now. And you're gonna have to pay a little bit of premium to do that, but I think in the long run, investment that will pay off, right? Again, multiples to this associate that can come in and within a month or so have a production schedule where they feel like, oh yeah, I'm busy, I'm using my skills and I'm being productive. But also it's it's equally important for the associate when you've laid out these expectations, not only these expectations of, hey, doc, you're going to come in and be able to do this and this in my practice, but also kind of the expectation of, hey, doc, I'm going to bring you on and I need you to do this and this and this.
Yeah.
And it gives them a sense too, when their production goes up pretty soon, that they are being, they are creating value for the practice.
Yeah.
Right. And so it builds their momentum. It builds that confidence that you were talking about earlier, that they're just a lot more confident in the practice. They're more confident with the team members because they do feel like, oh yeah, I do, I am contributing here and I'm doing what the owner wanted me to do. And that just, again, builds that value, and it'll just help that doc feel so much more successful in your practice. So that's one of the things that one of the little nuggets that we've incorporated that's been able to work out really well.
That's a great tip. That is great. A great way to do that, and just ease that transition and really get them invested and going, which is the biggest thing, I mean, you want them to feel like they are, you want them to have that ownership mentality, and where they can really come in and positively impact the practice, and do a great job. And yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, so here's I can just imagine some people listening, some doctors listening, where they're like, well, why would so a little devil's advocate, but why would I, spend all this time to invest in an associate who's just going to leave, after a couple of years? So I'll play the devil's advocate, but how would you respond to that, Pete?
It comes back to that abundance mentality, right? Like, I just believe that, as we share like and give back and provide, level of service or pass on the knowledge that we have, that it just comes around and to help us in the future. I mean, it's just that it's a little bit of that mentality. Yeah, it's risk, right?
Yeah.
There's risk involved. And a lot of times, like, that doc moves on and wants to own, and the ownership is not what they envision in your practice, and they move on to be an owner in another practice. I think if you've treated the relationship with that associate the right way, when they do leave, that will be such, like, almost like like such a satisfaction of what you've been able to provide another doctor within our industry.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I mean, sometimes, right, we as dentists, especially in very, and I can say this because I am a dentist. So
yeah.
in some very competitive markets in dentistry, right, we almost just look next door and feel like they're, the enemy, that
Right.
they're competition, right? When in reality, right, we are part of a profession that is phenomenal, we provide a phenomenal service.
Yeah.
We can do cool work. I mean, a lot of us got into
life-changing stuff,
life-changing stuff. Yeah. I mean, because the impact you can make, but also just the stuff you can do with your hands and create, and there's a creative component to it. Like, dentistry is just so phenomenal. And it also, it just so happens that it can provide a very, successful career financially.
Yeah.
So it just provides, like, and so if we can kind of have that mindset of like, hey, us dentists, man, especially in this world and I'm part of owner of a DSO, but in this world of consolidation, where the relationship with our patients is slowly being devalued as DSOs grow and become more corporatized, and it becomes more about the numbers and profitability and all of those things. We are losing the piece of dentistry that brought a lot of us into dentistry.
Yeah.
Is having those relationships with patients, right? And having a phenomenal profession. Yeah. Right. So if we can kind of see that and say, you know what, if I can pass along the knowledge and skill set that I have to another doctor that's maybe in this next generation, or maybe, similar in age to me, and we can together, have a career together as associate, or maybe a future partner. Like I think it's just short. It's just a short, a short-sighted mindset of
Yeah.
that, hey, that doc's going to leave and I just trained him and did all this, invested so much.
Yeah.
They probably did a whole lot for your practice too, right? And
Yeah.
the satisfaction of what you're able to provide for that associate. You can't put a dollar sign on that sometimes. So I think that would be my answer, Mark. Maybe that's the
Yeah.
cop answer, but I just feel like we are part of such an amazing industry, and it's a great thing.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. I know there's so many of us that, we love the industry because it is very service oriented, I mean, you provide these things, these benefits and outcomes for people that, some are very simple where it's more maintenance, but some are so impactful, that it really is life changing. And you just kind of sit back and you're just marvel at what happens with these patients as they come and they gain confidence in it, how that trickles down into every aspect of their life. It's not just a dental appointment, I mean, there's so much more to it. And I love the collaborative nature in general of the industry. Like, it's just so neat that so many are willing to, I mean, like you come on and just share your experience. Like, it's just, and I love that, I love that approach. It just benefits everyone. Absolutely.
Cool. Yep.
So, okay, so we're kind of wrapping up, but let's give
Yeah.
some action items for those people that they feel like, okay, I am looking to add an associate. What are some 1 to 2 steps that you would recommend that they'd start doing right away?
Yep. So I would um, rehash what we've talked about a little bit, right? And just highlight maybe just two or three items. One, identifying the why. Why
Yeah,
would you want to add an associate? Really identifying what that is. Is it work-life balance? Or is it, hey, I want to grow the practice, or the practice is just growing without me doing much and I just need to find someone to do more dentistry? So really identifying the why is so key. And then off of that, because of that why, okay, now I need to define what the expectations of that associate would be. If I had the perfect associate, knowing that we're not going to find the perfect associate, but if I
yeah,
could handpick somebody, what skill set would they have? Would it be complementary? Would it be, I'm the big case, uh, doctor, and they're the bread and butter, or what the expectations are,
yeah,
right? And then it really is then building a marketing piece. If you're not there, if your practice isn't there, to get there.
yeah,
If work-life balance is what you're all about, and you want more time is such a valuable asset that we don't get back. If you want more time outside of your practice, man, that's motivating. It
yeah,
really is,
yeah,
right? So like, let's go make this happen so I can. That doc that I said that we told you about, that doc fairly well, went from 3.5 to 2.5 days a week alongside having twins,
yeah,
right? And so the freedom outside of the practice that's provided that doctor spend time with his families, and this, time is valuable
oh,
when you've got, I think it's number, what was it, 4 and 5 or 3 and 4. Anyways, a number
yeah,
of kids at home under a certain age, and the last two are, do you have twin babies? Man, time is so valuable. So that's so motivating, and it was so benefit, like it was so rewarding for us to find a doc associate for that individual that allowed that doctor time outside the practice. Like, it was so motivating and so satisfying for us. And it's funny how it works too. You find time and resources and abilities to do the same amount of dentistry in 2.5 days that you did in 3.5
yeah,
days.
yeah,
Someone told me that early on. If you work 5 days a week as a dentist, go down to 4, and you'll figure out a way to do just as
just
much.
as much.
And I've heard that, it works for 4 days to 3 days. It just does. I don't know if it goes 4 days to 1 day, but we wish that formula worked.
I know. We're still working on that 4-hour work week.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
heard
yeah.
about
So,
it.
so, but no, I think those kind of things, identifying the expectations and the why, are just so key. And then reverse engineering it with marketing
Yeah.
to make it happen in the right time frame. So,
Yeah.
It does help to have, somebody, um, somebody that, whether that is a group, a DSO, or a broker, or, there's practice brokers that
Mhm.
will help place and find associates. Having somebody do the heavy lifting of identifying, filtering, it can be so beneficial for a doctor,
Yeah.
and just an extra set of eyes and perspective to help make
Mhm.
that big decision of who it should be. So I think those are I don't know, did I miss anything there, Mark? I
No,
probably.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I think, yeah, as you start to go down these steps, identifying the why, defining expectations, building out marketing systems to support that. I mean, as you just set that goal, I mean, it's amazing how the world starts to work in your favor, as
Oh,
you really think about that and you digest it and you start planning things, you'll notice the things starting to fall into place, and like you said, whether you're trying to go for a more work-life balance of, going from 4 days to three, whatever the case may be, you'll see those steps, that progression happening, as you put more time and attention to it. So I
yeah.
love that. Yeah, it's a great
Awesome.
recommendation to just get started.
Well, it's
All
been good,
right.
Mark.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Pete, for joining me. I know I know
Oh,
you're a busy man, so I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise. And because I know this is a topic that a lot of people are wondering about. So really appreciate that. For those that would like to, learn more about Bridge, or just talk to you, maybe have questions, what's the best way to reach out to you?
oh, sure. Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn. A lot of dentists are not on LinkedIn, but you
I
can find
know.
me on LinkedIn. Peter Tyer. So Theurer. You're probably going to put that in maybe in the heading of
Yeah, I'll put that in the notes and
in the
on the,
notes,
yeah, and on the heading.
because my name is spelled a little different. It looks like Theurer, but it's Tyer. But or at bridgedentalgroup.com, or you can email me directly. I love to talk to docs. I mean, that's why we started Bridge Dental. That's why it exists, is an avenue for doctors to have resources and ability to create the life and career that they want. So email me at peter@bridgedentalgroup.com.
Peter at bridgedentalgroup.com. Okay, I'll make sure we put that up in the show notes so everyone can just go there, make it easy, and just click the link, and then they should be good to go. But Pete, thanks again, my man. I really
Oh,
appreciate you coming on.
appreciate you. Thanks, Mark.